Straight from the edge, it's time for some daytime drama. Bringing the best in WaterCooler series talk. General Hospital fans, the bold and beautiful fans, fast forward the tape. The young and the restless is on deck. Over on Y&R, Eva LaRue is showing up, Alma Chilton alum, as Celeste Rosales. And so Lola, ends up seeing her mom for the first time in a while at her bachelorette party. And, she's already seen the traditional approach that she has from, her mother coming through. And she's worried how it's going to affect her and Kyle, considering they're living together. And Kyle runs off with Mariah to clean everything up out of their, apartment above Crimson Lights. And Celeste realizes, the times have changed a little bit, but she knows that they've tried to cover it up a little bit. And, Lola is trying to keep her business, going in different avenues and different ways. And Mariah wants to help her out and says, hey, I want to put you in front of a camera. And Lola's like, I don't know about this. And, she reluctantly goes ahead with it. And, Tess is there. She just did her video. And, they're trying to make this really natural feeling and, just off the cuff sort of videos. And, so she puts her in front of the camera. And Lola's doing really well. She's stumbling, but not too bad. She recovers real quick. And then Mariah just jumps the gun and says that, we're going to have to start this over, even though the recovery was already there. It's kind of silly because they're going for something natural and they were getting it. But so her mom is watching this whole thing unfold, and so they realize there's tension going on between that. So Mariah gets Kyle to come on over and, just talk to her while she's doing the video and just play it off really nice and smooth, the supporting part. And then Lola was just comfortable to just allow herself to be herself and not think about the camera. But I think that went over better than they thought it was. But Celeste, of course, is thinking this is ridiculous, all of this stuff her daughter's doing, and not understanding how times have changed how people view all this kind of stuff. But they're still button heads. And Celeste runs into Theo, and he's one of these influencers, and she realizes that Kyle was actually buddies with him back in New York, and that the two of them partied pretty hard, and they kind of went through women like they were disposable essentially, and not really treating them correctly. And so she, the red flags are going up that Kyle, nothing has probably changed in the way he treated women before. And through that too, Theo basically alluded to the fact that Lola had the liver transplant, and Celeste had no idea this was going on. And of course she's upset with Ray for not telling her. And she confronts her daughter, and obviously she's kind of like a little bit of a helicopter mom, and that's probably part of the reason they didn't get her all worked up about it, because they didn't want to have to deal with that. But she feels slighted, and rightly so. She's their mother. And Ray also is kind of really concerned because Celeste is now back with their father, and he had thought growing up all this time that, the dad had left them. But Celeste essentially said, when she found out he was cheating, she kicked him out. And so, of course, Ray understands, considering everything he's gone through recently, how that would all unfold. But he, talks with Lola about it, and she's really upset. And the father wants to come walk her down the aisle, and, Lola barely knows him, and, she wants Ray to walk her down. And so, this is just more strife. But Eva's just doing a great job, playing this part. And, she's playing Ray's mother. And if you look at the actor's age, they're only about 15 years apart. But, I mean, she's absolutely beautiful. And, but playing a little bit older character, I guess. So Phyllis and Summer both got thank yous from Celeste through this. She runs into Phyllis and just hugs her, and Phyllis doesn't know who she is, and says thank you for what her daughter did. And then later she runs into Summer and does the same thing, and gets more info on Theo and Kyle, and realizes that things are probably more in line with Kyle. And Summer comes to his defense, saying that she blames herself more for what happened with this entire situation, and that Lola and Kyle were kind of just basically victims of what she was asking for in getting married. And so Celeste, she basically talks to her daughter, saying, well, you don't need me. Obviously, you've gotten everything under control. You've never talked to me. And Lola's realizing, like, whoa, I don't want you to leave. You're not even going to stay for the wedding. And so she's kind of upset that she's gotten her all involved, and then she's just going to walk. So I don't think she's actually going to go completely, but she's definitely playing that. Anyway, Chelsea's husband, Calvin, he comes back and dies within like a few episodes of being on the show. And before he had died, he had talked with Adam about basically like he wanted to give back his son to him because he'd adopted him, and he wanted to make babies with Chelsea and have her all to himself. And so when he had the heart attack, Chelsea basically thought that Adam had killed him, and then Adam had basically tried to pin it on her. And through all this, there was no foul play, and it was nice to see all that unfold for, Paul basically saying, nothing happened, this is all normal sort of stuff. And you also had Nick coming to her aid, and basically now they have to worry about how this affects the two kids, Christian and Connor, because Adam sees it as an opportunity to just go ahead and go for Chelsea. And her husband's body's not even cold yet. And it's just crazy, but, considering everything he's gone through, he wants to get back to normal. And, this leads also to him going after Christian again, and he's got the video of, Nick pulling the JT mask off, and he thinks that's enough. And he also has Kevin, he's going to have Kevin deliver some blackmail to the judge to get it to influence his way. And Kevin's trying to turn it around on him, and Michael, intervenes and says that, he's going to take care of this. And really what Adam wants is to have Michael under the hook. And so he's trying to get Kevin out of there. But of course, now he has Kevin and Michael under the hook. And Michael, tells Nick that he can't represent him, and Nick's he knows that Adam had turned him and flipped him. He's just pissed. And so, he gets him to realize that, you screwed me over right here right at the end. But Nick, goes in and represents himself, which is a bad idea considering everything he knows. And he makes a great case for himself, and same with Adam. They're both going at it, and the judge is listening to all the stuff and pulling all of it out. Well, Adam had it timed for Kevin to put the video up online on social media, and basically got his lawyer to put it in as evidence, even though you're not supposed to do it that way with the judge. And so he wanted more time to think about all this, and when they came back, he said their behavior was just so horrible that Christian needs to be put in somebody else's care. And so they're both trying to find somebody to cover for that. And Sharon is Adam's first choice, and Victoria is also Nick's first choice. So it ends up going to Victoria, and just devastating to watch Christian not know why he's being like tossed around, and his dad's like saying you're staying with your aunt, and hopefully through all this there's a realization from both parties that there's some common ground that they need to strive for, where Adam has some connection to his son, and obviously Nick should be the primary person. But it's just a ton of crazy stuff, and Kevin, through all this, he bumped into Mariah, and he was saying he had all this positive thinking, and he was going to get this turned around on Adam, and Mariah's like, are you the first person to, or are you the last person to hear about The Secret and Law of Attraction? and he looks at her quizzically like he doesn't know what she's talking about, but nice job on the writer sticking that in there. And you also had Michelle Stafford and Laura Lee Bell interacting, I think for the first time since Michelle's been back. And Phyllis and Christine have had so many things over the years, but Christine had fell on her face with this whole thing with Victor, the lawsuit and everything, and him saying, basically you should be in jail for how you came after my family and everything. And so it just is nice to see Phyllis rub it in her face, and just a lot of good fun there. Over on GH, Elizabeth and Franco are having their reception party at the Haunted Star, and they get a little time together while the party's going. Their guests are waiting for them, and they get some time between the sheets. It was kind of fun, and Franco wasn't really expecting it. It was all Elizabeth, prompting that. And anyway, Liesl Obrecht, she's a little tipsy and having a good time, and she kind of is overhearing conversations and realizes that people don't know about Wiley's paternity, and so she's letting little hints slip, but then trying to backtrack. And of course you have her getting pushed off of the boat, and so it's trying to figure out what happened. People are saying, well, she was drunk and everything, and she's like, no, I was pushed. And so they're trying to deduce who that was, and Brad is most likely the candidate, considering he's trying to cover up the fact that that's Michael's baby. And anyway, so we'll see how it all unfolds, but you also had Hayden returning, and Rebecca, just beautiful woman, glad to have her back. She's definitely interacting with Finn, and they have some unresolved feelings, and Anna's away right now, and so she's trying to not be too pushy, but remind him of what they had. And so I'm liking all that, and they play off each other so well. It'd be exciting to see if they can maybe reconnect, and him have to ponder who he really is more attracted to, considering he might not have even gone towards Anna had Hayden left. So we'll see. Cameron is trying to go to this too, and Laura had said to him that you need to give Franco a chance, and he's not too excited about all this because sometimes they work well together, sometimes not. And basically Laura's saying you need to step up as bringing the family together, and maybe it's the right approach, maybe not, but Franco definitely has put good steps forward to connect with Cameron, and Cameron has done so as well. Not quite sure why they needed to hammer that home, but he went to Josslyn and asked her to come, and she's not ready to go out and do stuff now that Oscar's gone. And so Trina steps in and basically says to Cameron when he leaves that she'd like to go with him, and so they go, and Josslyn doesn't end up coming later, but they also had Dev, involved in all this and interfering with him asking her out to this. But just a ton of fun between the four of them, and they're definitely having a lot of connections between Trina and Dev, and Josslyn and Dev, and then Cameron and Trina, and Cameron and Josslyn. Just good four group. So Chase is getting pretty antsy about Willow being locked up, and he feels like he's doing everything by the law, and it's not enough to get her out of there. And the Scorpios, they're kind of late to the game, but they're doing their best to figure this all out. And Sam ends up coming with a statement from Beecher's Corner from the woman who was falsely where she'd taken the rap for Shiloh, killing Willow's dad. And they're like, well, that's still not enough for them to get her subpoenaed to come over there or whatever. And then Jason walks in and says, I'm turning myself in. And he basically says he has another witness. And what he had been up to is he'd gone to Harmony in lockup pretending to be her lawyer. And he basically laid it down to her like, this guy killed your husband while he was tattooing and the tattoo, and then drugging, and then raping your daughter within a 3-hour time span. And now you need to protect your grandson. And she's realizing, like, holy smacks, like everything she's done for this guy was just a scam. And all these people within the cult were putting their best foot forward, but this guy's just obviously completely abusing them. And she's realizing that she needs to do right by her daughter and by her husband. And so she does end up flipping and coming forward for the Scorpios and saying she wasn't coerced by Jason and everything. But just solid Sam and Jason tag teaming this, getting everything to go the right direction to bring down Shiloh. And meanwhile, you're having Oscar's Willow being read, and Jason was the executor of the will. Alexis had to step in to cover and take care of everything. But Cameron had gotten a car from Oscar, and Josslyn had gotten the compass, which was nice. And then you also had the rest of the reading will. Shiloh showed up because he wants the ELQ stock that Oscar had said was going to be in the will early on. And after that, he made a request handwritten for it to go to kids that wanted to climb Kilimanjaro. So, Drew's just totally pissed that this guy's in here, and, he shoves him to the ground. Of course, nobody does anything. And Olivia, it was nice to see, tried to back this guy off, considering everything that's going on. And so they get him out of there, and he ends up getting confronted by Lucas, and he pushes him around. I mean, this guy, Shiloh, he's great at falling and just making it seem realistic and everything. And so you have Matt come in and arrest him, and nobody he is actually corroborates his story, getting pushed over and everything. And, he'd just gotten the test results for DNA test on Wiley, and so he didn't even get a chance to open it. Lucas, by Michael's request, ripped him up, considering it's Michael's kid, he doesn't even know. But so Shiloh, he's arrested, and he ends up getting out on bail. And you'd had Drew and Jason connecting at Oscar's request to build a treehouse for the kids, and they're going to the floating rib, and they run into Shiloh of all people again, and it's just, he's right up in their face causing problems, and Jason's like, you got this handled, and Drew's like, yeah. And so he leaves, and Shiloh's having flashbacks from his time in Afghanistan, and they're definitely making this readily apparent. I mean, so not only with Doss and Mac and Renair, the whole sigil tattoo. I mean, they had made that connection. Sam was having it removed, and they were talking about the tattoo and the numbers being transposed for letters, and so they definitely made that connection there, and they're furthering this a little bit more, talking about Afghanistan. And so you have stuff going on in these higher up blackmail rings, and basically DOD would be one of these feeder rings into something more substantial. And you had basically the flashback. You got to have Jason playing Drew's character, and he'd caught Shiloh in basically selling fuel to terrorists. And the clowns, obviously, they're all into the poppy and everything, and so you're getting into the territory with all the Shiloh stuff and everything, with Epstein and the Maxwells and the farms and stuff. There's some crazy stuff you can go towards, considering you had the twins kidnapped at different points and their memories mapped and all sorts of weird crap. It's definitely matching up in this sort of way. And you also have I'm trying to think of her name, but the one that Finn was dealing with Anna. So she's coming back into the fold, and it's going to be surprising in some ways if they don't connect that up to Shiloh in some way, considering he's got these high connections somewhere, and just a lot of crazy stuff. So I'm loving Bobbie and Scotty together. Scotty, Bobbie had passed out, and basically he felt a lot more connection to her than he'd had in a long time, and he wanted to, comfort her, but also he asked her to get married, and she was a little like, holy smacks, like, you're just doing this out of nowhere. And then he's realizing from his son that maybe he needs to go about a little slower, ask her out on a date, and just do it in a more romantic sort of way. And he just tried to jump the gun there, but just a lot of fun stuff. And then he's on a knee scooter, and everyone's making fun of the scooter, and you even had Kevin say, "Nice scooter, Scotty." Just a lot of good little jokes there from the writers. But and then he also had Willow interacting with Nina a lot, considering she had realized that Willow was in a lot of heat over this whole thing, when she let it slip, about the baby in front of Shiloh. And so Cynthia is in the new character, and she's doing a great job. I mean, she's from Guiding Light, and taking over as Nina, and she's saying to Willow basically that she apologized for everything that happened, and Willow's like, well, it would have happened anyway. But she's just really fitting into this role really well and getting a lot of time. I mean, she's getting to fight with Ava Jerome, and obviously Nina is working on the Crimson magazine to get her in there, and so there's just a lot of great dynamics going on. And also you have Ava, trying to connect to Kiki, and so she's getting all of these people that have ESP or whatever, and the second one that shows up, she says that she feels she's a supernatural influencer. Just fun stuff on the writer's part there, just putting that in there. Anyway, over on Bold, Wyatt, he invites Flo to move in, and so she's, a little taken aback. She's moved like twice in the last few months, and she's saying like, what, do you want to be a sex kitten on the couch? And he's saying, I really do want you to move in, and Shauna's all excited about it, and she heads home to Vegas for a while, and Sally bumps into Flo and Wyatt at Forrester, and she sends Flo off on some errands, and she's really trying to like get up next to Wyatt, and she kisses him and says, trying to remind him of what they had, and he's, having a second thought a little bit, but when this whole thing blows up with Flo, it's going to be interesting to see if he actually, sees what Sally and him had as a lot more special. So, Thomas is just crazy. He's using his son in all sorts of ways. He gets him to propose to Hope for him and pretend that it was his idea. And then he even puts a projector underneath Douglas's bed that has a ghost on the wall and scares his kid to death to get Hope to marry him, and just insane stuff. I mean, Matthew Atkinson is doing a great job just acting in this way that no one would necessarily think that Tom character would go, but he's making it seem really real and how crazy he is. But they end up, going forward with the marriage. Xander, brought an ultimatum down on Flo saying, or on Zoe saying basically, if you don't tell the truth, I'm out of here. And, she doesn't do anything and he leaves. And so, Thomas, gets the wedding all going. And of course, everyone's trying to slow it down. And you got it all the way up to them going through with it. And little baby Beth and, Phoebe, I guess, she basically crawled up to her and said, Mama, Mama. And basically Hope had a second, glance at Liam, like, what's going on here? And of course, it wasn't enough, considering the baby did basically go up to her mom. They still went through with it. It's just crazy. And meanwhile, you had Flo, she came over pretty lit and started talking to Zoe about going over to the wedding, and she's got her flask and she's ready to go in a nice little dress, and Zoe basically slows her down enough to where she doesn't end up getting there in time. And when she does get there, Thomas is all over her, basically saying, you need to get out of here, and what are you trying to do? And he basically threatens her, and you had Liam overhearing from the stairwell, and so he knows that there's a secret that basically Thomas is keeping, and Flo knows something, and so he's trying to get to the bottom of it. So through this, Thomas basically calls Flo the next day and is reaffirming that she's not going to say anything and about Beth being Phoebe. And so through this, Douglas overhears and comes in the room, and he says, baby Beth is alive? And of course Thomas is like, no, you misunderstood me. And he just gets so aggressive with him. He grabs his arm, he's yelling at his son. He even goes so low to say that he's going to essentially leave him there and run off with Hope to New York, and just mental and physically abusive towards his son, and just disgusting sort of things to try to get him to forget about it. Well, of course, that's not going to work. That's going to make him remember it even more. And Douglas is talking in the mirror saying, baby Beth is alive. And so he's being left over at Steffi and Liam's for the night, and Hope and Liam are there. And of course, they're all in the living room, the three of them. And so basically, Douglas says to the two of them that baby Beth is alive. So at least they know in all of this that their child is alive. They might think for a while that he's, making it up or whatever, but it's definitely nice to see somebody telling the truth, and hopefully everyone else can come through. Anyway, a ton of drops out there. Keep on researching.